Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Toastmasters. It's sort of interesting. I persuade for a living, so it's my job to convince people to buy things. That's pretty much what I do day in, day out. So tonight, I sort of thought I'd take a different road. Look, a couple of weeks from now, I'm going to be presenting to a room full of 20 business owners, and I'm going to convince them to buy a newsletter. Considering the speech I've written, 7,500 words, it should, and I know that as a webinar it converts about 25%. So I sort of figure I got the whole persuasion thing covered. The persuasion thing in 5 to 7 minutes, not so much. Speaking 80 words a minute, that's like 480 words for a 6-minute speech. I don't know how to persuade people very much in that time, and I think, with all due respect to Toastmasters, the enormity of the task of persuasion is somewhat trivialised by this speech. So tonight, with Kevin Rudd calling the election, I thought I'd take a somewhat unconventional approach, and as I started to plan this speech, some words rang out in the back of my head. You never discuss sex, religion or politics in polite company. So here's to hoping this is either not polite company or I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life as a Toastmaster. So, two other political snippets always spring to mind around election time. The first is Thomas Jefferson's quote from the post-revolutionary war days, and he said, "Periodic revolution, at least once every 20 years, is medicine for a sound, healthy government." So that was the first thing that always rattles around my head at the time of election. The second is from Futurama, when identical twins Jack Johnson and John Jackson are both running for president of Earth and have political doublespeak that would make Orwell blush at its quality. So I sort of thought, maybe this is the time to really step in and sort of see if we can clear up a new way forward through Australian politics. Now, the third thing I encountered recently is a very cool piece of graffiti that I'm going to read for you. It says, "Vote for nobody. Nobody will keep election promises. Nobody will listen to your concerns. Nobody will help the poor and the unemployed. Nobody cares. If nobody is elected, things will be better for everyone. Nobody tells the truth." And I think that's somewhat apt for Australian politics at the moment. Now, I'm not really sort of here to persuade you to vote one way or the other, but more to maybe broaden our horizons to a different future. I mean, there is the Greens as a third-party alternative, but as we all know, the Labor and Liberal Party have conspired to minimise their effect after 3 years of a minority government. And now, billionaire, soccer-loving, mining magnate Clive Palmer stepped into the breach to provide what he believes is a valid third-party alternative. Unfortunately, in my electorate, the slogan is "Dancing for McEwen." I'm not really a big fan of dancing, as we've all heard about before. And then I found out dance is actually the dude's name. So, really at a loss. So, I think really, to be honest, when left with the two major parties, I can't tell the difference between them. It confuses me. And I'd like to think I'm busy enough not to take the time to figure out where exactly they differ on key political issues. So I will probably vote this election the same way I've done every other election of my life since I was old enough to vote. I will vote against the standing member of Parliament, blindly and continuously, until they are not elected. I have a theory that if enough people believed what I believed and did this, and we went through an election where nobody was returned to their seat after the election, and then it's happened another 2 consecutive elections, we might actually stop having politics the way that it's currently exists, and we might have something resembling what Thomas Jefferson calls a real democracy, a democracy where the people are listened to, not this idea of nobody cares about you. We might actually have a real political mechanism, and I think that would be a noble place to be. So, this country, Australia, has been a democracy since 1901, when our first elections were held. That means, by Thomas Jefferson's definition, we have not had a healthy government in this country since 1921. So that is why I'm going to vote the way that I've always voted and continue to vote that way, even though it probably won't make a cent of difference. So thank you all for listening to me. That is my goal for this election, and hope you all have a good night and vote for nobody.
Vote for nobody. I guess that sort of was a metaphor. Was that a metaphor? Sort of.
So I think it was just a slogan.
Just a slogan. Okay. Well, I think it was a metaphor. That's what I felt like. You had a clear, confident voice then, and you've got an imposing figure, which really helps in presentations like this. You acknowledge your quotes, the Thomas Jefferson quote, which I think is important, that you do acknowledge material that you borrow from other people. You had a clear voice and you used good humour. A couple of points for improvement. Your hands were like this sort of thing. You doing a lot of this. Leave them down there, or using the gestures, but it's distracting. Okay. The other point I would make is the direction was to persuade with power. As I say, you've got a presence, you've got an imposing figure, but you sort of didn't. You stood here. You should sort of move forward, take command of the floor, use the room, and raise your voice. Let us all know that you've got that message you want to get through to us. Otherwise, big improvements, I think, Zac, over the couple of years that I think you've been with us. I remember you as being very nervous when you got up here and talking very rapidly. And I think that's toned down a little bit. I would still suggest you could go a little bit slower, perhaps at times, very that pace. But I think it was a lot clearer, a lot better. And I enjoyed the humour. You had a good, quick conclusion. You brought back that Jefferson quote, or another Jefferson quote. And I think there was strong persuasion and clear message. So well done.
Thank you.